never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it'll change your life.
Good afternoon, Matt.
Rob, I am tired. I'm not going to buy your magazines. You keep trying to sell me these magazines. I get plenty of magazines.
I'm not going to sell you this magazine, Matt, but I am going to talk to you about it. And then if you
I should read my texts more closely.
if you wanted to purchase them, well, you couldn't because they don't make them anymore. This is Dungeon Master of None, and today we're talking once again about our dearly departed second best TTRPG adventure role playing aid, which is Dragon Magazine.
Yes.
It's been a while since we've done one of these. We've pulled some really exciting ones. I
know you bring me, villain in a 90s action movie. You bring me the best shit.
I do. I was just like flipping through my stack and I came across I forget what the actual title is, but the Dungeons and Demography one, which is like a 4-page, like deeply researched piece about like why it's okay to commit genocide on gnolls or something like that. It's wild.
It's one of my favorites.
But today we have a little short one, a little fun one. Matt is not feeling 100%, so we're gonna try to keep it low key. We're gonna have a good time, and we're gonna talk a little bit about solving.
I podcasted too hard. I strained my vocal cords. No,
podcasted too close to the sun. We're gonna talk about a problem that perhaps still plagues players 40 years later, because I'm going to read you a little bit from Dragon Magazine number 82, which was published in February of 1984. So this includes such excellent articles as The Ecology of the Periton, Wounds and Weeds, Plants to Help Your Characters Heal, 13 Rings That Do Weird Things, 13 New Pieces of Magical Jewelry, some stuff for Dragon Quest and Top Secret.
We should do a top secret episode one of these days.
We should do a top secret episode.
Do you want to guess what the number one movie was in February 1984?
Oh, gosh.
I'll give you a hint. It's a Swayze one.
Oh, was it?
Should narrow it down to like
was it
3
Dirty
movies.
Dancing?
Footloose.
Sorry.
Footloose.
Sorry, Dirty Dancing is Kevin Bacon, right? My bad. Don't get mad at me, Swayze fans. So...
No, sorry. I'm wrong, Rob. Footloose is Kevin Bacon. Dirty Dancing is Patrick Swayze. I get these confused all the time. One is dead and one is still with us.
That's right. But the article that we're going to read from February to 1984, imagine, if you will, Ronald Reagan.
How to make a PC out of the main character of Footloose.
Ronald Reagan is about to be swept into office on a wave of good feelings. It's still morning in America.
No, I actually, Rob, I do hate to tell you that early in the Reagan administration, his approval ratings were quite low.
Wait, was the 84 election not... Hang on.
No. So I'm saying you're right.
Oh,
he won in a landslide in 80. His approval ratings tanked, and then they like rebounded and stayed high. But the early couple of years were a little rough.
Okay, so
inflation was still high. All that stuff.
We are not riding high. It is not morning in America.
But Reagan's still there.
Imagine, if you will, then that Reagan is still there and still winning, but not as winning as hard as 1980. That Footloose is playing in the theaters. Women have shoulder pads. Men have, I don't know, cocaine. It's the 80s. Mustaches, mullets. Yes,
perms.
Maybe all three.
Feathered hair, mustaches, and perms. All at the same time.
We are going to read an article called "Curing the Monty Hall Malady." Now, this is a pun. It is actually Monty Hall, Haul. And this is
not like Monty Hall, the game show.
The game show, for which
I'm familiar with the Monty Hall problem,
which is a very famous.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a very famous math.
I've got
problem.
3 doors, Rob. One of them has a dire goat behind it, and the other has a Holy Avenger longsword.
And
I'm gonna open one of these doors. Do you want to change
your answer?
Which dungeon room you go into?
It is the most confusing and least intuitive math problem I have ever encountered, but it is very instructive that human brains don't work quite right. It's also instructive that in the 80s, Monty Hall was a household name, and nobody knows who the fuck that is anymore.
Yeah, people are constantly making references to Monty Hall.
And this is by Roger E. Moore, who I looked up previously, and I could not remember if I found anything interesting about him. Oh yeah, that's right. He was editor of Dragon Magazine. He's still around somewhere. I don't think that he's got some like Greyhawk publications, but that's about it.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, Roger.
Anyway, so he wrote this article, Curing the Monty Hall Malady. Before we get into that though, Matt, I'm going to show you the cover of Dragon Magazine number 82, and will you describe for our listeners
Sure.
what you see on this cover?
Oh my God. It is a dimly lit dungeon room in which 1,000,000 men-at-arms are in action poses while a bright glowing longsword appears in the middle of nowhere, floating in the air like Mordenkainen's Sword of Disjunction or something.
Yeah, I believe that is correct. There's a wizard or something who's summoning Mordenkaisen's sort of whatever, and terrifying some mooks who are about to get slashed into pieces. So here's solving the Monty Hall problem. And not only is this amusing, but I thought that it might even be instructive to our current day DMs
masters.
because it does. There are
the Monty Hall problem. It's still around.
I wish he had not named it that. It's just like, buddy, this did not hold up. So before we get into Sir Roger Moore's article on the Monty Hall problem, I want to remind you all that we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Dungeon Master of None.
And there you can find, I think, a full 24 hours plus of bonus podcasts and a bunch of cool homebrew that we've made.
A bunch of cool homebrew. If you like the show, if you want to support us, if you want to encourage us to do more of this, if you want to delay the time before Rob has to get a real job, then please subscribe to the Patreon. You also get a lot, like Matt said, a lot of free stuff. So check it out. Link in the show notes. You also get access to a special private Discord channel for patrons only. So take a look at that. Anyway, Curing the Monty Hall Malady by Roger E. Moore. The following passages were taken and edited from letters received by Dragon Magazine in the last year. As you read through them, ask yourself if some of them describe situations that have occurred in your own Advanced Dungeons & Dragons trademark campaign.
I love an interactive introduction.
That's right.
It really tells me how to think about the piece.
So these are
good framing, as a teacher would say.
These are quotes. So these are letters from previous editions. So starting with, my players have characters who have created spells that propel them through time and space at tremendous rates. They have looted the future and brought back devices that can destroy Greyhawk and many of the planes. They own several battle stars, and they have a large stock of AT-AT walkers from The Empire Strikes Back. How do I keep them from destroying Greyhawk and creating an incredibly boring campaign?
Are they playing riffs? Also, how could this campaign be boring?
I know.
I'm sorry, they have Death Stars.
This one letter.
This sounds great. Okay.
A second letter. One player I know in an AD&D game has a human character who has changed his race and class several times and is now multi-classed in 4 classes. He decided his character would kill Orcus, and after that his character became the new prince of the undead, with an unlimited amount of any undead to control, even an unlimited number of liches. The character also has some star destroyers he uses to fly around in space or to destroy planets. This character has a permanent prismatic sphere around him that even moves with him. He says he made it by wishing a couple of thousand times. How does one deal with this kind of player in a campaign? Okay, so that's letter 2.
Okay, man, people are just getting Star Destroyers all the time in D&D campaigns in the 80s.
I have a 65th level cleric character and want to know if he can get more spells or magic items. Also, how many times can my character use his spells at will if high-level characters can use several spells at once? Third letter. Fourth letter. I knew a character in an AD&D campaign who was able to slay the god Thor by using a push spell on him, knocking him off a tall wall. The hammer Mjolnir did not fall off the wall, and the character got it. Fifth and final letter. Our dungeon master has a campaign in which a 4,000th level magic user / cleric runs a magic shop in which characters can buy artifacts and relics for the prices listed in the DMG. If a character walks in with the right amount of money, he can get anything. Is it possible to have an NPC like that, and is it advisable?
Sure, why not?
So before we get to Roger E. Moore's response, I just sort of want to like sit with those.
What's going on with games back in the day?
What's the fuck is the matter with gamers? Is really like, yeah.
Rob, to me, this seems like a dudes, etc. Rob problem. Yeah. It's just like, we have been playing for a long time. There's nothing else to do in the 1980s. And all of our campaigns have reached 60th level. We are the gods now. And great. That sounds great. It might be time to end these campaigns, right, but everyone seems to be having a blast.
Everyone's having a good time. So. Everyone's plane hopping to the Star Wars dimension so they can acquire a spaceship and use it to.
It does seem like everyone just wants to play Star Wars.
Right. I think,
really on the brain of gamers in 1982. I guess Return of the Jedi had just come out.
Yeah, is either coming out or has just come out. Yeah, I mean,
just come out. Yeah.
This illustrates to me that there is a world in which Gary Gygax or someone like him, instead of creating chainmail and then D&D, created something similar but for science fiction and radically changed the course of history, because like it really feels like people wanted that, but all there was Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I mean, obviously by the 80s there's a million sci-fi role-playing games,
right,
that lots of people are playing, right? But yeah, it will be another couple of years till Weston Games comes out with their D6 Star Wars game.
And none of them...
Yeah, it does seem like people just want Star Destroyers.
Yeah, none of them take off the way that D&D did. But if he had, instead of making Dungeons & Dragons, he had made laser swords and... I don't know. It would have to be... It would have to be like a similarly like obvious pastiche in the way that D&D is to Lord of the Rings, but, sufficiently different enough so that nobody got sued. But yeah, people wanted it. They wanted Star Destroyers. They wanted Star Destroyers.
Yeah. I also noticed the pattern in these letters. I have a feeling where the Monty Hall problem is going, but a lot of people killing and then becoming God, which I approve of.
Yes,
right.
That is a good arc for characters, in my opinion. Yes,
your character is no longer a player character. But that sounds great. What better way to retire your character than to kill and become the god of your choice? Thor, Orcus.
Yeah, become Orcus or the new Orcus. And this is sort of like a theme in Forgotten Realms. Not that these are player characters, but a mortal becoming powerful enough to slay or assume the mantle of a god. That's Cyric and Mystra, and it happens all the time. There's a big universe-shaking event and a bunch of gods get deposed. I mean, this is great,
Right. If you list the most dangerous occupations in the Forgotten Realms, it's like, adventurer, logger, ice road trucker, deep sea fisherman, Mystra.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
The goddess of magic is the not something you want to do.
No, it's not a healthy position to hold. So we're jumping ahead to like Roger Moore's eventual, one of his many suggestions. But yeah, I think a basic thing here is like, these are fun, but those campaigns, those characters need to be retired. Like the problem is that like all of these DMs who have written in, you should have said, great, roll a new character, or let's start a new campaign. Your Star Destroyers are now the villains in our new campaign. Like let's start.
Yeah, I know. This is
the
point where the advice that, hey, you can't win a game of Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know. If your party like controls time and space, maybe you have. And obviously this didn't exist in 1982, but now's the time to play a game of Microscope or something, Kingdom Builder, and be like, all right, what are the consequences from your actions? Let's create a new campaign world based on you destroying and conquering space-time.
And I'm as guilty of this as anybody, but I've already identified like 6 different places where the DM should have said no. And or how about this instead? And that's also a major problem with these letter writers is like, if your player wants to do something that's completely outside the realm of, possibility, like casting Wish 1,000 times, maybe, say no, or, place some limitations on that behavior. But whatever, these things happen.
Yeah.
All right. So here's what Roger Moore has to say. My first reaction upon reading these letters was a frank disbelief. AT&T walkers marching across Greyhawk, Prince of the Undead, killing Thor with a push spell, 4,000th level characters. After reading through a pile of letters like these, however, I remembered AD&D games that I refereed long ago and the characters that I once played. When I began as a DM in 1977, I ran adventures in which the characters met 20 dragons of all colors in a single day by random roll, of course. That's in quotes. So I'm guessing that Mr.
He's making a joke there.
Mr. Moore is suggesting that he randomly generated. Put his thumb on the scale a bit. Oh, Mr. Moore, how dare you? My group was started on a quest for the Silmarils of Tolkien fame, and met preposterously huge dragons and other gargantuan beasties guarding the various treasures. I love how in they didn't care about canon. They didn't care about like intellectual property in the 80s. They were like, fuck it. Silmaril, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica. Right. They were right. That's right. Free yourself from the shackles, listeners.
All D&D campaigns in the 1980s sound like the filibuster that Patton Oswalt did in
or
Parks and Rec.
Game Master Anthony. Like it was all Game Master Anthony all the time,
All right. Bring it in for a big hug.
For a big adventure.
A big party. All our favorite characters.
Other characters in an old campaign of mine were able to find things like Captain America's shield, Excalibur.
Oh my God.
I know.
It is Patton America. And then, what do we see? Chewbacca.
Listen, we've gone hard on Parks and Rec recently. It's some of the later seasons do not age well, but there are moments of sheer brilliance in that show. It is at times a masterpiece. Excalibur and other assorted artifacts after cutting their way through the minions of a 30th level Lich to do it. As player characters, I've run a Minotaur, demigod/demon prince who attacked other deities on impulse, though not successfully. And once I played a gold dragon who had 3 female hench dragons named Farah, Kate, and Jacqueline. You get the idea.
What?
Actually, Roger Moore, I'm not sure I do get the idea.
I don't get the idea. Where are you going with this female hench dragon named Kate? Okay.
Yeah, the hench dragon named
Kate's
Kate.
Everywhere catching strays in this.
Why not Jackie? Why Jacqueline and not Jackie?
I don't know.
As much as I'd like to whitewash my past abuses of AD&D and D&D registered trademark games, it cannot be done. My friends would remind me of them, for one thing. Good. Your friends should remind you of your most embarrassing moments to keep you humble. The memories come in handy, however, when reading letters like those above. The AD&D game system is a very complicated one. Dungeon masters have to absorb many rules to run a game well, and the prospect of running a campaign can be very intimidating. Most DMs want to run adventures to keep the players challenged and happy. Killing off characters, even when done fair and square, is intimidating too. Some players will pout for days if their characters get killed or don't get what they want, and this can be rough on everyone. These problems can put lots of pressure on the referee to start altering the scope and balance of the campaign. If my best friend Bob really wants his character to have Odin's rune wand that badly, well, maybe there's a way.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. It is hard to keep people happy, and
the temptation
the
to say
and
yes
often best
is hard
action,
or is strong.
because it's usually
Usually
I
it's
don't
right.
know.
I mean,
It's usually right
more
to say
often
yes.
than not.
Y'all wanna go get Odin's rune wand? Perfect. I mean, you didn't have any motivation before. Now you have some.
I think the lesson is not to just like give it to them, but like give them an option to acquire it within the game, you know? The hidden problem, of course, is that giveaway games like this pale very quickly. Soon, no one feels challenged by anything the DM throws at them, people get bored, and the game folds. Sometimes one or two players are shown exceptional favoritism in a campaign by the DM, and everyone else gets shafted. No matter how you do it, giveaway games like those described above will produce nothing whatsoever but a sorry, frustrating mess.
Right. I mean, this is also the D&D problem,
Yes,
which is
right.
As players get more powerful, it becomes difficult to come up with interesting challenges, right? The like combat crisis engine works really well for someone from, Conan the Barbarian and Aragorn's power level down, but once you go narratively beyond that, it can become frustrating.
I mean, this is why most GMs, most DMs, myself included, prefer to either halt or wrap games before they get to really high levels. Because not only is it hard to balance, but it's just like it's hard to keep the stakes high. It's hard to challenge your players. It's hard to give out meaningful loot, especially since by that level they are supposed to have gotten some truly absurd levels, items and have immense wealth. And this is not an insurmountable problem, but it is a problem, and it's one that's existed since the very beginning of D&D. This is honestly, sorry, this is getting off, but like one of the challenges of tabletop that I find most interesting and fun to sort of like tinker with is like the reward system, because you want to give people stuff, but like how do you do it so they don't have so much stuff that like it stops being interesting or fun? And there's lots of approaches to this, and it is an open question, but I think for me it's a fun thing to tinker with. For a lot of people it's not, because it's just more bookkeeping, and this is an ongoing D&D problem.
I mean, it is, for me, it's so liberating when a player says, these are the things that I want.
Yeah.
Because I can just put them out there and, push or pull them in many different directions and see which one they pick with one more thing, one more motivation. And they're always very excited. Like, I have a wizard that wants to have the most extensive spell book in the world.
That's a great motivation.
And it's like, great. You're like a little Pokemon collector.
Yeah, the collecting.
Spells.
That's a great motivation for a character and for a player. Yeah. All right. Roger Moore continues. Players generally enjoy running characters who are powerful and garner respect from other characters in the game. Few people want weak or incompetent characters in any role-playing system. This is actually, I find, not true, but, gamers were different in the 80s. Everyone wanted a power fantasy because they were still nerds getting shoved in lockers, but now nerds run the world, and we want the experience of feeling weak and powerless.
Yeah, we were just talking about the factotum in the Between, a character that is basically
a sniveling like a little servant. A little Jeeves.
And in a couple of my Vase and one shots, right, I've had characters play the butler character or character archetype, and they love it, right? They love being like a little servant to someone else, right? Mm. And then it's so much fun to have these hierarchical relationships among your PCs at the table, if that's what the players want, and they do want it some of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I love playing a sidekick in games. I think it's a lot of fun. It's just like an interesting dynamic. But
I forget the name of this character, but one of my friends in one of our long-running Champions games played like a superhero that was cursed with like immortality, which also meant not aging. So his character was like, 19, like, what's the name of Captain America's sidekick? Bullet?
Oh yeah. Bucky.
Bucky, right? Bucky. He was like the Bucky, but he had been Bucky for like 7 generations of superheroes from like the golden age of comics to the present day. And
like what's his face from the Venture Brothers, the Wonder Kid who never ages, but he's
right.
I forget his name, the supervillain guy who's anyway.
Boy
Wonder or something, or Boy Genius.
He's Billy Quizboy, Boy Genius.
No,
right. it's different than Billy Quizboy, but
like what are you doing there? Nothing. The hand gets kind of buggy when I use it for delicate work. It's fine now. How'd you get that thing? That's an excellent question. I have no idea.
It was like that. It's like the perennial henchman, but he didn't have any superpowers, but he had a million gadgets from his time in serving these other superheroes, and like knowledge on how to like take down any death ray or anything like that, because he's seen it all before, and it made for a very memorable character. And he was always the servant, subservient. He was ready to take orders, ready to assist, ready to do the aid action, and it was fun both in combat and role playing. People love being the sidekick.
We've come a long way. He continues, the motivation to have a strong character sometimes leads to cheating, altering die rolls and ability scores, running down magic items the characters never gained, or DMing one's own characters. Players often put demands upon the DM for less powerful monsters and more treasures, and get caught up in a race for the bestest with the mostest.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this only brings the end of the game closer at hand. If the gods can be slain without trouble, what is there left to do? The game was supposed to be fun, but soon...
Start a new campaign.
The game was supposed to be fun, but soon it isn't. Is there something wrong with the game? No, the game is fine. Sorry, Roger. I disagree. It takes...
Okay, I think...
Go ahead.
I'm going to put a guess out there for what the Monty Hall problem is, based on the power of context clues. It's DMs are giving players too much good stuff too easily. But I'll let you continue.
It takes time to establish balance in an AD&D campaign, and it is frankly impossible for anyone to run a campaign for any length of time without having the game get out of balance at one point or another. In other words, it is normal to have problems somewhat like those described at the start of this article. Normal, but not desirable. When a gaming group starts out, the chances of the game getting out of balance rise considerably if everyone wants to fiddle with the rules right away. The more alterations, the further out of whack the game goes. By the time everyone is aware of the problem, it is far too late to change anything without dumping the campaign and starting completely over. With first-level characters and using the rules as they are before you start altering anything. What about my 65th level cleric? Well, either the cleric goes or the game goes. The game can exist without the cleric, but the cleric can't continue to exist without the game. So.
Okay, yes. I mean, at a certain level of reading this problem, our friend Roger here is right. If you have one character that is a 65th level cleric, whatever that fucking means in AD&D.
I don't even I've just kind of gone past the 65th level cleric and the 4,000th level magic user. I'm like, but what does that mean?
If I remember AD&D,
doesn't it cap at 30th level for deities?
Yeah. The gods have 40, 50, 60 hit dice, so you're more powerful than the gods.
Are you just making up spells? Are you just what is having 40 additional levels mean in this context? It's if it's just hit dice, but then you're still you're far more powerful than the gods. The value in starting over is that now everyone has at least some idea of how the game works and how it isn't supposed to work. The sour taste of a runaway campaign makes players that much more reluctant to repeat the mistake again. Second campaigns are generally more balanced than their predecessors, and most players I've known, myself included, have found them more fun to play.
Okay. So here's my thought, and I thank you, Roger, for giving a name to this amorphous thing we're talking about, the runaway campaign, where players have abilities, items, connections, spells that let them do things that are not usually encapsulated by the rules system. I find while runaway games can be a nightmare to DM, which is why Roger's getting so many letters about them in Dungeon Magazine, They are
Dragon
incredibly
magazine.
memorable. Dragon magazine. They are incredibly memorable, right?
Yes, they are. Well, and this is interesting, right? At this time, I think it was standard for campaigns to be sort of never ending. Like we hear about all these legendary campaigns from the 70s and 80s run by guys like Gygax or Arneson and other, big names that were going for years or decades, and some that are still running. And, the power and the legend and the, how impressive and how much happened for all of these characters. But I don't run my campaigns that way. And I don't really have any interest in playing in or running a campaign that way. Like I have some sort of, with no like real end in mind, but I certainly am not imagining that I will play them without interruption and without sort of like either a reboot or new characters for decades, certainly, or for years, or, just at a certain point, you have to start over. I mean, this is true of all fiction, I think. Like you don't want
Is it all just one book?
Yeah, right.
For me, I get tired at about 2 years. I always tell my players this. I'm like, no campaign of mine ever lasts more than 2 years, so we'll wrap up around there. But no, yeah, you're right. In the 70s, 80s, it seems like, each dungeon master is the auteur of one fantasy world building that they have done an amazing job at, and all campaigns will take place in that world, continuing 1 or 2 or 20 major storylines that go on forever as characters and players drop in and out, and it's always the same game world, always moving forward. That's fine. It's not for me though.
Yeah, and you can still play that way, but I think that if you do, not only is that like a lot of responsibility and pressure on the DM, but you run into exactly the type of problems that Roger Moore is describing. And I personally, think that, rather than having one enormous book or book series, like why not tell many stories? Why not tell many shorter stories or whatnot? But I think that it was not always the case that people thought in that way, and it was assumed that you were your own. You were a Gygax in the making, and you were going to invent your own, massive campaign world that was going to come to dominate and be, legend among gamers, and then you give your players Star Destroyers, and that doesn't happen. So, Roger Moore continues.
Who's staffing these Star Destroyers? Like that was my problem with the last Star. One of the many problems. Who staffs the million Star Destroyers that live in a cloud in space in the middle of nowhere? Who feeds them?
They're clones, Matt. Everyone knows that. They're
okay.
I don't know.
What do they eat?
I legitimately don't know. I don't know.
Who gets their blue milk for all the guys? Like a Star Destroyer has like a million guys on it.
It's funny because in Star Trek, there's an easy answer for this because they have replicators. But Star Wars, right. I'm pretty sure you still have to ship food up to the Star Destroyers because they don't have like replicators. Anyway, these are good questions, Matt. I've always wondered about the logistics of the Death Star. I didn't see a single farm on that Death Star. It's the size of a planet. Where's the farm?
No hydroponics.
Where's the hydroponics?
Right? Yeah.
Maybe it was there. I don't know.
I was falling asleep in that last Star Wars movie, and then like the very end where they show up, and there's a million Star Destroyers.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I guess.
They recruited them from all the young Imperial clubs all around the Republic. They're all staffed by space Proud Boys. Not everyone may get tired of a Monty Hall campaign at the same time. A gaming group may split up into ultra level. Sorry.
Okay, wait. So a Monty Hall campaign is a game where you just get prizes.
Yeah,
like
where you get
TV
prizes,
show.
which
they're
is
just handed out like candy.
Like candy.
Magic items and things. Okay.
A gaming group may split up into ultra level gamers, and those begin with a fresh campaign and characters. It usually seems to happen that the group starting over again will acquire more game players than the other group, and the Monty Hall group will dwindle in membership. The willingness to start over again is a mark of maturity and flexibility, and this will attract players who admire and practice those qualities. Once again, we are reading an article that feels like there is some general advice and some that's like, here's some problems that I have in my personal campaigns and the conventions that I attend, and now I have tried to universalize them.
No, I mean, so part of the like gameplay loop of early D&D is like, you level up, you acquire followers, you acquire
a stronghold or a base of some kind,
and you acquire a ton of magic weapons, right? So you may just be a fighting man of like 11th level, but you have, boots of flying and, all these, crazy magic items that make you essentially a superhero.
And this was, for all of its flaws, this was a clever design decision for early D&D. You were sort of like capped at a certain power level, but you could continue to advance by getting richer and gaining followers and building up your stronghold and, basically becoming like king of a nation or something like that. I mean, it was a sort of like, what do they call it? Like lateral rather than vertical advancement, which is an important thing to have in an RPG if you do want it to have. If you do want to be playing it for a long time and you don't want to constantly be having to up the power level of both your players and your enemies, is to have some lateral advancement options. So if you don't do that, if instead you give your players levels beyond what they're supposed to acquire and infinite magic items, then yes, you run into the Monty Hall problem, but not that Monty Hall problem, a different Monty Hall problem.
Okay, it seems like Roger is unable to look outside the box. He's like, okay, so you got to start a new campaign, and then people will slowly, organically realize that the new lower level, lower magic item campaign is more fun than the high level one. But he can't see you should just like come to a satisfying conclusion to the high level campaign and then start a new one, because you can't do that. It's always got to be the same campaign.
Right. You're not allowed
That's
to
the thing he's
start over, I guess.
Like, all right, you killed Orcus. Now there's an imbalance in the gods. Let's have the gods war. Who else you want to kill? Okay, you did that or you didn't. The campaign ends.
Yeah. So he goes on. But I like playing high-level characters, in quotes. So do I, but I find that building a character up to high level is more entertaining when starting out from lower levels and working him up by the rules. Characters run in this manner are more believable, more colorful, and have more interesting personalities than those slapped together in a Monty Hall campaign. Their flair and liveliness makes them more fun to play.
I guess I agree with that.
I agree.
Most of the campaigns I played in that have been like, all right, we're starting at 14th level or whatever, and you have 200,000 gold pieces to buy magic items, and it's like, okay, yeah, this was a lot. And, the fun thing is they don't have to last that long, but it sounds like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I
do prefer starting at lower levels.
I have like a particularly bad brain problem about this. Like, I like to play RPGs, like, Souls games and, Skyrim and whatever. And I will, even if the game includes an option to respec my character, I will start from scratch to make a new one, because I enjoy the feeling of playing that character and building them up over time than just like being at the end point with the things that I want. This, ends up with me like repeating things ad infinitum sometimes, but like,
have you finished Baldur's Gate 3
yet? Did finally finish Baldur's Gate 3. It took me a really long time unfortunately to finish it for this exact reason. So there's probably a better way to do it than the way that I do, but I think
absolutely.
I think that for a lot of people, yes, it is.
The way you play video games is wrong.
It is wrong. Do not do the things that I do. But it is still fun to have played a character from start to finish. I also like jumping into like a midway campaign, but I don't like to play those for a long time. Let's see. He goes on to say, the Minotaur demigod character I used to play long ago was not as much fun to play as my 5th level fighter, 7th level thief gnome character, Cyrano de Bergerac. Cyrano is obnoxious, speaks an outrageous French accent, and gives everyone who meets him severe heartburn. The Minotaur just hacked and killed. Dull, dull, dull. Now, I am going to, prescribe, sort of like a big picture thing to what Roger Moore is describing. And that's that this is a pattern that I see in a lot of players. Their first character is just like a murder hobo. They're like, I want to make the most powerful thing that I can. And they play that for the while, and they're like, okay, my second character is going to be weird and wacky.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that in like a
creepy or something like that. They usually pick creepy.
Yeah.
I think.
Or funny or both or one of the things or edgy or I don't know. But like,
edgy.
And I'm saying this with a tone, but honestly, the second character is usually better, and the third character is better, and the fourth character is better. But like, it is very common for people to start out being like, "How can I be powerful?" And then the next time they're like, "How can I be a little bit weird?"
Yeah. The cycle is powerful, weird, himbo, nuanced.
That's right. I'm stuck on himbo. All my characters are himbos these days.
Never move past himbo
I don't want to move.
to nuance.
I don't want to move past himbo. I have too much fun being himbos in games. When I suggest starting over again and using the rules as they are, I am not saying that everyone should play only official AD&D games. Also, like a big part of this is clearly like that either Roger Moore doesn't think that like homebrew is good or works, which you might be right about, or there's too much homebrew, which may be a genuine problem with like early D&D. I don't know, but clearly it is that people are adjusting the rules in ways that cause them to write into Dragon Magazine and be like, help, I adjusted the rules and now my players have too many levels and too much shit. All AD&D and D&D gamers eventually develop peculiar systems that they use in their campaigns. With reasonable effect, those such systems, like critical hit tables, new monsters and magic items, new character classes and races, and so forth, are not official at all, says the editor of Dragon Magazine. However, the more closely one works with the rules and the more often they are used, the better one understands how they work together in the game. In time, one can judge whether a particular rule change will throw a campaign out of balance, or whether it will, for the players concerned, improve the enjoyment of the game. Understanding the rules and knowing them is the key to designing a game that keeps DM and player alike happy. There is no crime in letting a campaign get out of control. Yes, there is. It's against the law, Roger. It is. You are under arrest for campaign crimes.
Game crimes, yeah.
The only crime... Sorry, there is a crime. The only crime comes in not learning from one's own mistakes. That is illegal. You will go to jail if you fail to learn from your mistakes.
Doing a no growth was a crime under Ronald Reagan.
Gets you put in jail. The best DMs and players are those who don't claim to be perfect and who look for ways to improve the game for everyone's benefit. A fresh campaign may be the answer you're looking for. It makes a pleasant change from killing gods with a push spell.
All right. Like I wasn't sure where we were going. He was like, the correct answer is to buy and only use officially recognized TSR Dungeons and Dragons and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons products. Also available Boot Hill, the RPG, and then he was like, actually growth is important. I was like, Sir Roger Moore. Thank you.
He came around to it at the end. What do we think about, this was I thought a very, very interesting article. It was, we have read a lot from early gamers and some of them are very funny. I'm recalling Louis Pulsifer's article about the right way to role play, which was very funny. But yeah, these are familiar problems, right? Like,
the Monty Hall problem, right? Giving your players too much shit too quickly and then your game spirals out of control. It is I don't think a big of a problem as he is making it, in that can be fun in and of itself. But yeah, it is a problem.
You just have to, the thing is that the kind of striking thing about this is that like ending a campaign doesn't appear to occur to gamers of 1984, like not in the same way that it obviously does to all of us who not only are great at ending campaigns, but can't help but end them because they end like quite frequently. Like it's more than anything, it's hard to keep a campaign going. It seems like a problem of a different time when people didn't have computers or anything else to like keep them entertained.
Yeah, they didn't have computer to play on. And today we play on computer. I will say we do a lot of criticism of 5th edition D&D on the show, but I think one of the two systems I really like, one of them is the idea, even if it's not perfect, that like try and make your magic items really cool and special. But like not so much that they can end the world unless like you want to make them and like a world ending thing, then sure, go ahead. I feel like 5th edition was designed to really solve the Monty Hall problem, right? I keep forgetting there's like the attunement rules, and they're like attunement, right? Am I making this up? There are limits
right.
to
You're
how
totally
many
right.
magical items you can attune, and you can't like pass them around and stuff like that. There's a lot of these cheese mechanics, and they're kind of annoying, but they do solve this problem, which AD&D did not. If you have the right combo of items and spells, there were a lot of crazy things you could do.
Yeah, and like maybe it feels gamey to you. I've come around on it, but like things like attunement and a lot of these rules, like you can get as many magic items as you want, but like you are limited in how powerful you can become, which does help with this problem. It creates another problem where it's kind of hard to reward your players in 5th edition, but I do think on the whole it's an improvement certainly over AD&D, but also over 3.5, which had a whole different magic item nonsense problem. So, I mean, yeah, we gripe about 5th edition, and we're right to. But if we were all still playing AD&D, I guarantee you the problems would be far, far worse.
Right. In 5th edition, you have to worry less about the balance of a magic item and more about making the item actually interesting and useful, which for me is I prefer that challenge because I think I can always make interesting and useful magic items.
Yeah. You're trading like one set of challenges for another, and I certainly prefer the challenges that 5th edition gives to the ones that I would be dealing with in AD&D.
I'm really glad Sir Roger Moore didn't break out the advice that I often see when people complain about my characters are too powerful. They have too many magic items. And, I think usually the second or third piece of advice someone suggests is, why not make them pay taxes? Why not have a bunch of thieves try and steal all their stuff or something like that? Yeah. With
that's
of course,
no fun.
The government being the biggest thief of all, taxation. So what I'm saying is like, that doesn't seem like a good solution either, right? If you're already in the Monty Hall problem, in the campaign, come up with a cool ending, honestly, just up the challenge level, give your players, challenge yourself to write problems that are not solvable by teleportation, right? It's like, oh, my players can teleport. They've invalidated a bunch of my stuff. It's like, yeah, but you can have problems that even teleporting players can't solve.
Yeah.
Look to comic books. Everyone in comic books can teleport and fly and stuff like that, but they still have problems.
Exactly. So yeah, this actually was, I often find it kind of heartwarming to look back on ages past before I was fucking born, and be like, gamers have been dealing with the same problems since time immemorial. So I did enjoy this. Matt, I want to record. All right, anything else about this before we move on, before we say goodbye, wrap up?
Thank you for another trip back to 1982.
84, Matt. 84, February 1984.
1984. What year is it? 1984?
1984.
Players are getting too many magic items? Wow. What a dystopia. 1984. Pulling the calendar back. The next year is February 1984. All right, Rob. So again, I have 3 doors. A, B, and C. One of them has a Holy Avenger door. Another has a worthless dire goat. Which door do you want to pick, A, B, or C in this dungeon?
Let's pick B.
Okay. I open B. There is nothing behind it. Would you like to change your? No, wait. Actually, scrap all this. I don't know how to do the Monty Hall problem. It's too fucking complicated. Humans are bad at statistics.
Humans are bad at statistics. That's the lesson here. They're also bad at saying no and bad at managing power.
We will have to do an episode sometime soon about how no human brain can comprehend what a 90% chance is, right? I think you read that. You sent me that article. It's like how all video games are fudging their numbers because people get mad.
People don't. Sorry, there was another article.
Does this matter for role-playing games? Maybe.
There was another article in this mag that I didn't read to you, which was really funny. It was a full 2.5 pages on how to determine whether or not your dice are off kilter, if they're not giving you actual random numbers.
Did Colonel Lou Zacci write this article?
No, it was okay. Some hyper nerd was like, I'm getting too many natural ones, so I'm going to create an extremely complicated formula to determine whether or not my die is actually accurate. Anyway, the point, this is related because humans don't know how statistics work. Stop pretending like we do. Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody, and keep rolling them dice.
You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life.